Three inscrutable Japanese games and one that surprised me on the retro hunting adventures. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. Please stay tuned.
Yo, this is Mega Ran, and you need to rock and or roll on over to Mr. MegaManFan's YouTube channel, because it's all that rush to make it happen. Peace!
If that sounds like an 8-bit version of The Entertainer, you're not mistaken. In fact, from my vantage point, that might be the best part about this game. This is Matsumototoru no Kabushiki Hishu Gaku, which translates to either Matsumototoru's Stock Success Knowledge or Matsumototoru's Stock Trader Tips. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Giant Bomb had to say about this game, and I think watching me play it will explain as well as the comments they left. The goal of the game is to make 100 million yen in the stock market in the span of 1 year with shrewd financial decisions and listening to financial advice about stocks. The game is fronted by Matsumoto Toru, a well-known financial advisor who is considered to have expansive knowledge of the Japanese stock market. Though it is focused on an unusually complex subject for a Famicom game, it sold well enough to inspire a sequel the following year. Now, when I say inscrutable, I don't mean that if you don't have any knowledge of stock trading, it's inscrutable to you. I mean, if you don't have any knowledge of Japanese, it's inscrutable to you. You're not going to be able to figure out what to do next without some sort of English language patch. I did my best, though. I fumbled around, hit buttons here and there, and got back and forth between this menu, which does at least have a selection bar along the bottom that kind of guides you along, but still, all I can do is look at these stock prices go up and down, and I don't even know if I'm buying or selling or trading or doing anything, and randomly I keep getting this car that looks like a toy car in a box, and now apparently I'm going on a skiing vacation, so I have no idea here, but I gave it my best effort, and hey, for a Famicom game I only picked up for $1.99, I guess it's fine just to listen to The Entertainer on loop, so maybe you can get further in this with an advanced knowledge of the Japanese language, but for me, this is one that I can't recommend to English speakers with no knowledge of the katakana characters. It's definitely an intriguing premise, but perhaps you'd be better off with a game like Wall Street Kid. Now you'll notice that I'm going back and forth between the actual games being run on my top loader NES and the emulator so I can give you a much clearer picture of the gameplay. Unfortunately, there's not much game for me to play here in Oshimbo, and I had high hopes going into it because it's based on a manga written by Tetsu Kariya and drawn by Akira Hanasaki. The title is a portmanteau of the Japanese words for delicious and someone who loves to eat, oshi and kushimbo, and it depicts culinary journalist Shiro Yamaoka and his partner, later wife, Yuku Kurita. It was published between 1983 and 2008, and it came back for a second run from February 2009 to May 12, 2014, but it got put on a hiatus indefinitely for a perceived lack of empathy, sympathy, or good taste in covering the Fukushima nuclear power accident. Now, I've never read the manga, so I don't know what they did wrong in it, but I do know that based on the manga, I thought this was going to be a game about eating food, cooking food, or loving food, and instead it just seems to be a dialogue tree. And without any knowledge of Japanese, I can't progress through the dialogue tree other than selecting things at random, hitting a button, and praying for the best possible outcome. And since I can't read the outcomes, I don't even know if this is the best possible outcome or not. So, suffice it to say, with Oshimbo, I got not very far and was not very enthused, and quickly decided this is a game I don't need to invest a whole lot of time in unless I get an English language patch. And I'd be surprised if anybody has actually gone to the length of translating such a dialogue tree heavy game, because I perceive that would take an infinite amount of time and an infinite amount of patience to cram the English into these small text boxes. I'm not sure it could be done very well. So my hat's off to anybody who's made the attempt, but my hat is not off to this game because I think this is a fail on my part. But that's what happens with Famicom games. Sometimes you get good ones, sometimes you get bad ones. And this probably falls squarely in the middle between those two. It is a mahjong game, and it was rather unique when I picked it up because I looked at the title and thought, oh hey, I don't even need to read Japanese to know what this is about. It's mahjong, I can tell from the title. And it's an oversized cartridge, and that's got me even more interested because usually Famicom carts are way smaller than their North American counterparts for the NES. But Shin Funin Uchi Mahjong Yakuman Tengoku turned out to be way more inscrutable than I thought. Instead of a mahjong matching game where you take a tile that matches a tile and work your way down to the bottom of the pile, this appears to be some sort of variant of a card game or a poker game, maybe a cross between those two and something like, what's a good example? Gin Rummy, something where you build suits and have trump cards, and instead of using those cards, you've got tiles, and they look like the standard mahjong tiles, but again, completely inscrutable to me. Perhaps if I understood the rules, or if there was an English language patch, I would have a better idea. But all I can tell is that we're placing bets, and whoever wins the hand wins the bet. So my amount of yen keeps decreasing every round, and it doesn't seem to matter which tiles I select, because I don't know what the trump tile is or how to win a hand. So once again, I'm just left to hit buttons and pray. And if you think that's a fun way to play a video game, then you might as well just sit in front of a slot machine and pour money into it, because that's all you're doing with a slot machine too, is just putting your money, hitting buttons, and praying you get a good outcome. And no. I mean, it's an interesting cartridge because it is an oversized Famicom game that apparently even has battery backup, which was unusual for Famicom games about mahjong, but that's it. The final one turns out to be the best one of the bunch, and I would not have predicted that going in. This is Takeshi no Sengoku Funji, which translates to Takeshi Lucky Sengoku Adventurer. Now, I could not find a copy of this that worked on an emulator, so you're just going to have to watch my Famicom footage of the game. And if the name Takeshi sounds familiar, you are correct. This is the same Takeshi, aka Beat Takeshi, aka Takeshi Kitano, from the infamous game Takeshi's Challenge. He's apparently got more than one game. Who knew? Takeshi's Challenge was so famous, I never even conceived of there being another one. But what we have here is a board game, similar, I'd say, to Fortune or Rockman Board, or I don't know, maybe even an early Mario Party type game. In fact, when you go to the main menu and select Party Game, that's almost exactly what you're doing. You're playing little mini games instead of waiting to play them when you would land on those spaces on the board. You can just select those mini games and play them directly from the menu. This one's kind of cool, actually. You get to time your power stroke and try to land a hole-in-one. And if you hit it too hard, it goes over the hole. If you don't hit it enough, it falls short and bounces around. You've got to get just the right power on the meter to make it land right in the hole. And you know what? Out of all of these games, I never would have predicted the Takeshi game would be the fun one, because famously, or perhaps better said, infamously, Takeshi's Challenge is one of the hardest Famicom games because there's no way to know what you're doing or how you're doing it in that game without a strategy guide. It's almost impossible unless you have step-by-step instructions. And yet, these party games, they require no instructions or even a working knowledge of Japanese. I mean, look, this is basically a Space Invaders clone. The aliens, or whatever they are marching from left to right. You shoot them down. There are occasional UFO types that go across the top. And the game ends when you let one get all the way to the bottom. It's very easy to understand. This was a very lucky pickup for a couple of bucks because I did not expect it would be so easy to follow along with in the party game mode. I'm not sure unless you had a patch for it that you could get very far in the board game, because I don't even know what the objective is to win. Like in a Mario Party game, you want to have the most stars and the most coins, and then you want to get the most bonuses at the end of the game for having landed on lucky spaces and having stolen the most coins from your opponents. You know, you get extra stars at the end of the game for completing random objectives. So I'm assuming there's something similar going on in the board game version of this title, but I don't know what those objectives are or how many turns it takes until the game ends. So I can't tell you how to win, but I can tell you this minigame appears to be rock, paper, scissors, and every time you lose, you get knocked further back, and when you get knocked back too far, you lose. So game over unless you win enough rounds of rock, paper, scissors to knock your opponent back. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. Thanks for watching.